Welcome to episode 180 of the Grip Strip podcast, the cashing in episode of the Grip Strip podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and my co-host is not the computer genius, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, a gentleman and a scholar, though he is a gentleman and a scholar himself. Josh Fine is on vacation this week, so I called in an old friend, NASCAR genius and big-time fan, somebody who covers all the series. It's been away for a while, but I called in the reinforcements, and he's went through a lot of pain to be on this show, literally, for the last 20 or 30 minutes. His name is Joe Passero. What's going on, brother?
Hey, not much. How you doing, Phil? It's I'll tell you, it's been really good to be back. When you texted me to come on the show, I was really excited. I'm glad I finally got over the computer was giving me some issues, but it's been a while. I'm excited. I've been wanting to get back on the show, and finally I feel like the timing was good and right where I could sit down and make it happen. So thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here tonight.
Absolutely, brother. I mean, this week, a lot of NASCAR centric entertainment, if you want to call it entertainment, at Richmond, took place. We had Christopher Buescher, as Dale Jr. used to like to call him, get a win for Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing in the Cup Series and lock himself into the playoffs. Ford's actually had a good day, so that's a miracle. It was an interesting race for sure, a lot of strategy, not a lot of yellows at the place that once was called the Action Track. They had testing there, which basically showed that they need more horsepower or a softer tire, but don't tell NASCAR or the Daytona Beach Mafia that. Sam Mayer goes and gets his first career XFinity win at Road America after Justin Allgaier dominates. So Mayer, Wisconsin, his dad, a shitty IndyCar driver for like 5 minutes. But Sam actually can drive, but finally breaks through for that victory. And Carson Hocevar, somebody who's been on Dirty Mo Media, since we're getting all the references to Earnhardt, went on and had to explain himself and says, man, it's like when Dale Jr. goes and tells him that when are you going to stop wrecking? And I guess he decided to stop wrecking because now he has his third win of 2023 in the Truck Series leading into the playoffs. Likely he's going to be in a junior motorsports car next year, I would think. I would assume there's going to be a bit of a Kiwi flavor as well going there. So there'll be a lot of changes going on at junior motorsports. I mean, we know that Allgaier will be there and Sam Mayer probably will be there, but the other two cars I would figure will be different because, of course, Josh Berry's leaving. Formula One won't take too long. The roundup, busy, plenty of stuff going on there last week and this week. We even get to talk about the fact that Paul Tracy figured out a way to get suspended from an exhibition series. That's a new level of suck. When you've crashed so many vehicles and you've pissed off Ken Schrader to the point where you got suspended from an exhibition series. Well, he can go to his heroes conventions and rallies and stuff now instead of being in a race car and being a battering ram. And he also, the problem is I think they also hired him so that Haley Deegan could beat somebody every week. We'll get into NFL training camp briefly. We already got some injuries going on in training camp. Joe Burrow got hurt last week, but it sounds like he'll be all right. Denver Broncos have already lost one of their wide receivers for the year again. And we'll get into anything else. Niners related, Jacksonville related. And since Fantasy League, the Fall Brawl Fantasy League will be drafting in 19 days as of recording of this recording. So we were coming down to the less than 3 weeks to go for that. We'll preview the Big Machine Grand Prix of Nashville. Last time they're going to be at this spot. Sounds like they're going to be the finale next year. So I hope they actually make a racetrack. Because the first couple of iterations of this race have been carnage filled. Cup and Xfinity will be at Michigan International Speedway this weekend for the next last oval race of the regular season. And then we'll close the deal with this episode. So first of all, we'll get into the Cookout 400 at Richmond International Raceway. I don't care what they call it now. It's always going to be Richmond International Raceway to me. And Christopher Buescher going out there leading, getting a second in stage 2 behind his teammate Brad Keselowski, leading the second most laps in the race. Basically led all but one lap of the last 53. So 52 of the last 53 laps and 88 laps total. It was a Ford and Toyota benefit basically on Sunday at Richmond. Tyler Reddick had two great stages, sped on pit road, gave away an opportunity to win. Bubba Wallace probably had one of his best short track cars he's ever had in his career. Had 2 top 5 finishes in the stages, led for 80 laps, had an issue on pit road, couldn't get back up front. Brad Keselowski won stage 2, led the most laps, had issues on pit road, and then couldn't get up through the field. And Dennis Hamlin and Martin Truex Jr. running alternative strategies. It ended up working out, especially once that yellow came out for Gagson running over Daniel Suarez. And I think that was literally the only natural yellow that took place. Yeah, that was literally the only natural yellow that took place. They took 13 laps for stage cautions, which is ridiculous. And they took 5 laps for a spin. Okay. All right. I didn't notice that, but that's also god awful. I'll get into the top 15 or 16 or thereabouts. Well, I can just go 19 because there's 19 cars on the lead lap. Christopher Buescher gets the victory over Dennis Hamlin. Kyle Busch finishes 3rd after starting 2nd. Joey Logano from 23rd to 4th. Ryan Preece's first top 5 of the year. The first top 5 for the 41 team since Cole Custer won at Kentucky 4 years ago. Or 34, whatever, in 2020. Brad Keselowski finishes 6th. Martin Truex 7th. Eric Almirola 8th. Austin Dillon 9th. And Kevin Harvick finishes 10th. Chase Briscoe finished 11th. Bubba Wallace 12th. William Clyde Elliott II 13th after starting 4th. Ryan Blaney from 25th to 14th. Keebler Gibbs finished 15th after starting 7th. Tyler Reddick from pole, winning a stage, finished 16th. Richard 17th. Alex Bowman, Kyle Larson rounding out the lead lap cars on a nightmare day for Hendrick Motorsports. Their best car was 13th. The other cars 18th, 19th, and William Byron, the points leader, in 21st. But Joe, it wasn't the usual fare. You'd see the Hendrick cars up there and probably have Toyotas up there. That's been the case for probably the last couple of months. But today or this week, it was Fords and were up front, and specifically the RFK Fords. And you had the 2311 Toyotas dominating, but it proved once again you have to be perfect on days to go and win these cup races. And Chris Buescher in the 17 team was better than the rest at Richmond on Sunday.
Yeah, these Richmond races in particular have become incredibly strategic, and the 17 team this week, they played the right cards at the right time. They made the right strategic moves, the right pit strategy, which has in the past few years become really big at Richmond. But at the end of the day, you're right. Mistakes cost multiple drivers, Brad Keselowski, Bubba Wallace included, and that really shaped the end of the race. rather lackluster race. I feel like that's become a trend at Richmond International. It's, just kind of based around pit strategy. It's a certain way I feel about multiple tracks. Richmond's probably the only short track in that category, at least the only short track in that category up until the advent of the next gen car. Honestly, to some degree, more excited for testing. I'm really excited to see what they tested and what the results rather of testing are, because this has been a bane for NASCAR for, the short tracks where NASCAR basically grew up and expanded. It's pretty hard to watch a short track race these days. It's you better hope you're playing the right strategy cards and that you're going to pass on pit road, because there's not going to be too much passing on the racetrack. I feel like it's been a little better this year, but at the end of the day, at least for Richmond, that 17 team, they played all their cards right. And, Buescher is a pretty good short track racer. He won last year at Bristol. And that, of course, I'm sure is going to fuel them going into this round of the playoffs. They'll be a part of the playoffs this time, unlike last year. And by a pretty decent margin, I have to say, with my points updates, that's one of the only things I still get to do pretty regularly on Twitter now. Chris Buescher was not really in danger of falling out of the playoffs on points. So as far as the consequences of him winning, I have to be honest, it's fairly minimal, especially at this point where we're getting to the point where, the playoff field, you got 12 drivers locked in just off wins. He was not locked in prior to the race, but had almost a 2-race margin to where really he wasn't going to, unless things really turned south quick, he wasn't going to fall out. So as far as the playoff consequences, I'm not really sure there were any, but, it definitely an interesting turn of events. You get used to watching the 6 and the 17. Some of the other Fords run well at the larger tracks. I think of Michigan, where we're going next week. Ford, I don't think, has lost a race at Michigan since maybe 2017 or 2018 timeframe. And I think about Daytona and Talladega and how well they're able to use their teammates, their corporate teammates, of course, all the Fords, not just for RFK, although RFK did wonderful at 500 this year. The Fords are heading into a time frame where this is about the same time last year they started to pick up some momentum that led them to Joey Logano getting in victory lane at Phoenix and winning a championship. And I think maybe we're starting to see some of the same workings over here. Is Chris Buescher a championship caliber driver? I don't know about that. I think RFK still has some time to go, but they're definitely making strides. They've made great improvements since last year. And if you're looking for a good sleeper bet for the playoffs, Buescher wouldn't be a bad.
Yeah, I think that for the way that Buescher and Brad are running right now, it looks like things are on the upswing for that organization. I think their progression has also helped in the front row motorsports and Michael McDowell's possibilities of making the playoffs. A couple years ago he did, but he really wasn't a factor by backdooring the Daytona 500 victory. It still makes me nauseous. But the fact is he's actually run well enough to deserve a spot on points, though it also proves that there's too many cars that make the playoffs in the Cup Series. I think it would be a lot more intriguing right now if you say, oh, now there's 12 winners. Nobody can make it in on points. Will Kevin Harvick in his final year make the playoffs? I think there would be a lot more intrigue. It would have made it even more intriguing last year when it worked out. There was 19 winners and there were 15 winners in the regular season. It would have been even more intriguing, I think, because there had only been 12 drivers. Like Blaney, and that whole Blaney and Truex thing wouldn't have, no offense to them, they would have been 4th and 5th in points and they'd have been SOL, but yeah, I mean, that's for another time, but I've had that feeling for a while. I was curious to check back on the stat, and the last time a non-Ford won, and a lot of them have been SHR wins, no less. Since 2018, there's been every win at Michigan has been a Ford, like Joe said, all but 2 of them from SHR, most of them Kevin Harvick. Blaney won once, and that was 2021, and Logano won once in that time frame. Logano's won twice at Michigan in both 2016 and 2019. The person that separated those wins is Kyle Larson when he won 3 in a row in the 42 car for Cheap Ganassi. So good call on that one. So we'll see if that actually holds. Fords have not exactly done great on bigger tracks, and especially SHR's cars have not been great on bigger tracks. But that's every car outside of Kevin Harvick. One thing I will say, though, about SHR, all 4 of their vehicles getting in the top 11, the stat of Ryan Preece getting his first top 5 finish of the year, first top 5 finish for the 41 car since July of 2020, which is ridiculous to think about. But I guess the people that are zealots that defend Cole Custer saying, well, the car it wasn't the driver that was the issue, it was the car. And I'm like, well, at the end of the day, you were in the Cup Series for how many years? And that was the one top 5 you ever had. I mean, that's one more top 5 than Miss Hummer had. And, and Miss Hummer finally ran out of money. When you look at Cole Custer, he still has the same issues closing races at times in Xfinity as he did that he's had for how many years, in Cup, and even when he was in Xfinity before. It's not I'm defending Ryan Preece thing, but the team's terrible. It feels like Greg Zipadelli is back in 2005 and not in 2023. They're trusting their engineering to people that have not proven to be outstanding once they've been put in the bright lights. No offense to Bugger Ravitch, but it wasn't like he set the world ablaze with his crew chiefing. He did good in his 1 year with Tony Stewart, but I think that's a preface of Tony was already more than damaged goods, was holding on for dear life, wanted one more win. They had opportunities to get that second win to get to 50, but they couldn't really do it. And after that, he had Clint Boyer, so you have to give him a pass because Clint Boyer wears a hockey helmet when he's not in a car. And then he's without Eric Almirola. But even with that, at some point, you have to be able to put results. John Klossmeyer had one great year with Eric Almirola, and then the bottom fell out. They wasted 2.5 years with John Klossmeyer, with Chase Briscoe, and then finally said, "Oh, let's put Richard Boswell back with him." That's retarded. You could have done that in 21. He had the same growing pains in 21 and stunk up the joint in 21, and they would have had a year and a half where they could have actually been on an upswing. That's logical. It doesn't sound like Eric Almirola is going to be back and he's taking his money with him. You don't have any money on the 4 car. So you have no sponsorship outside of Chase Briscoe and whatever the little sponsorship that, Preece brings to the table plus Haas money. So Joe, you can go in on this.
I will say, I think you're pretty spot on. Stewart Haas has been an interesting case over the past few years, and to some degree, I think it's a miracle Harvick has done as well as he has, given the performance of, really, for the most part, the other 3 cars. Last year, Briscoe had a good year. Back in 18, the whole organization had a good year. But after 18, it was a totally different story. 19, 20, 21 was a lot of struggle for the 4 cars collectively, and I think Harvick's was highlighted because we're so used to seeing Harvick run well, but it's been a case study of all SHR. The last 3 races, though, I'm going to throw Pocono out the window. 2 of the last 3. When you go back to New Hampshire, all 4 Stewart Haas cars, particularly Almirola, showed a lot of strength and speed. Again, at this short track at Richmond, some strength and speed between the 4 SHR cars. Maybe this is a way for them to, they're not going to jump right back into it, right? Harvick, I was thinking maybe at the end of last year with how well Harvick started to do, that maybe they were going to pick up on the momentum at the start of this season. But you have to build up that momentum. With Stewart Haas Racing, maybe these short track races are where they can begin to build their momentum. And, I know right now I just said a lot of these short track races come down to strategy. There is an element to strategy, but there is still that element of speed. There are a handful of cars that are still capable of passing other cars because they are that much better. And the Fords in general seem to this weekend be able to do that. But with those 4 SHR cars, I feel like really it's been pretty rare that since 2018, we've seen the 4 SHR vehicles run really pretty close together, all 4 of them. So I think it should be encouraging for that organization moving forward, at least, knowing that they've got something to work with now. Of course, you're probably going to end up having all 3 of the 4 SHR teams miss out on the playoffs this year. Right now, Harvick's the only one who can boast anything. He's 6th in points. Even without a win, he's most likely going to make the playoffs, whereas the other 3 all but need a win to make it. So I feel a little encouraged, actually, after Richmond about the performance of SHR as a whole. Just going off of what you were saying, that I don't know why. That was just my first thought. They seem to have that short track speed, and I'm curious to see if that's something they're going to be able to capitalize on. I mean, Harvick has a handful of good tracks. Almirola, to me, this was not his wheelhouse. I associate Almirola much more with tracks like Daytona, Talladega, even Atlanta now, the bigger racetracks. Is now it going to present an opportunity for maybe Alric Almirola to go out on a high note, capture a playoff win, whether or not he's in the playoffs at that point, but is that going to present an opportunity to him? And Preece, I think, more of a short track racer, and I thought was very impressive during the Clash. I just haven't seen that out of him since the Clash, I don't feel like. So I'm curious to see what this organization can do moving forward, in particular to the short tracks, to see if that's something they can utilize to build themselves up.
Yeah, I completely agree on that. I mean, I'm looking at it, of course, my personal bias aside, because essentially the leadership structure of SHR, we don't know what that's going to be. You're bringing in a 32-year-old rookie, albeit a very talented race car driver, in Josh Berry, having to fill the shoes of Kevin Harvick, really. But in this sense, he's setting his own identity. Him and Rodney Childers are probably they're like 2 peas in a pod, because they're basically the same guy. Rodney sees a lot of him in what Josh went through, and I think Josh sees a lot of what Rodney went through, and I think that's why they basically said that was their only choice. I'm like, well, no shit, Sherlock. I didn't need to be Tony Stewart or Kevin Harvick to be like, yeah, that is the only choice. There was nobody else that was really capable of taking over that ride. So they just have to bring all his funding with him from that he's brought in from juniors team, and then piecemeal stuff together to get a sponsorship package. Tony has a lot of partners. You'd think he'd start leveraging some of those as well. But him and Chase Briscoe are the future right now of Stewart Haas. Their Xfinity program is kind of in no man's land. Will Cole Custer get a call back to Cup? Maybe. It sounds like Michael McDowell might be in play, but is he going to bring money to the table? He's never been a money driver anyway. Even when he was in open wheel cars. Stuff to look at, but SHR has proven over time, especially in recent times, that their short track package is probably where they're best at. Martinsville was proof of that. I think that was the only other time we saw Ryan Preece all year, when he got pole, led the first stage, and then promptly dropped like an anchor when they had a pit stop problem. And then, which I think that's the last thing we'll get into, the notion of having to be perfect in these races. Yes, the 45 car this year has had execution issues. They brought it up on the broadcast, where whether it was pit road errors, whether it was some sort of issue on the track, whether something happened, or with the Tyler Reddick itself, who's great talent, absolute one of the best raw talents there is in this sport. But even when he was at the 8 car, he had moments where he'd overdrive. He had moments where he'd take himself out of the race, a la Kyle Larson. And this year is no different. They've had speed. They have the win at Coda, but there have been other opportunities where Reddick could have won, hasn't come through. Now, on the flip side of that, you have Darrell Walsh Jr., who's looking for a win. Points-wise, was able to benefit from the horrendous weekend that Trackhouse had, which is also something that I guess is an underground deal that's been going on since the Darlington race in May when Rick Hendrick decided to go scorched earth on Ross Chastain. That Trackhouse Racing has kind of went into hiding and basically not been the same team ever since that incident took place, sans the Nashville weekend where Chastain dominated. The thing for those guys, and of course Brad Keselowski, all of them were dominant up front, really didn't have any issues, no real challenge with the clean air. Yes, traffic was difficult to get through, but you could eventually make something happen. Hendrick was proof of that. They couldn't get anywhere the whole entire day. But once they went, and the same thing happened at Martinsville. If you effed up on pit road, you're done. You cannot pass in traffic with a fast race car in this car. And you brought it up. You said it's a product of Richmond, but I think it's pretty. There used to be the day where you could have a screw up, but if you had 2/10 on the field, it was one thing. Now you're talking about hundredths, and you're not going to make up hundredths of a second unless you have like a 40-lap run. And even if you have a 40-lap run, the way these races are going,
yeah, it's just not as much fall off. It's hard. I'll go back and revise my statement. It's not really a product specifically of Richmond. It is a product of the short track racing package employed on this next gen vehicle, because it really is. You're right. It's all the short tracks. Penalties will take you out of it just like that. And, it even, I think it rears its ugly head on the road courses too. Last year at the Roval, we saw no passing. I think it's gotten a little better this year. I know they went back. They made a few different adjustments to try and help out the road courses, and I think they've been working out. But even still, you're not passing like you would with the Gen 6 car. I'm thinking, 2 weeks time ahead, Watkins Glen, 2021, Chase Elliott. I mean, he made such a bad error on pit road. I don't quite remember what happened, but I remember it set them back so far to the back of the field. But you're right, over the course of a long run, he drove right up to second and was still closing on Larson up until the last handful of laps, almost won the race. You don't have that anymore, not at the short tracks, not at the road courses. Dale Jr. a handful of years ago was involved in a wreck. I think it was 2006. They chopped off one of the fenders off the vehicle and he ran his way back up to fourth, right? You can't do that anymore. If you lose a body panel, you're going to go so many laps down in the first place. You're not going to make any of them up because you're just not going to pass. And that is where modern short track racing is at. I hope that the components of the package they're testing next year are able to help the passing, are able to help the drivers. I'm not entirely sure, to my knowledge, it's not tire compound that they're testing. I hope that they're able to find a softer tire compound that wears a little, that will create more passing opportunity in itself. But the aero still needs to be worked on because that's still going to be a big part of it.
And as long as they keep on running a splitter and they have the underbody downforce, it's something that we're seeing in Formula One as well, where having the ground effect kind of downforce, it's not a package that is something that is good for NASCAR racing. Having the cars sealed off to the ground with little to no suspension travel. I think we've been going through this for, I think, the better part of 20 years, going back to the lobster cars, I forget what they called the not T-Rex, that was the Jeff Gordon car, but the cars that the Twisted Sister cars. There you go. Yeah.
Man, 2005, 6, 7. Those are pretty gnarly, but you could pass with those cars. You could do things with those cars. A few years ago, I think it was, I don't know if it was last year. It had to have been, actually. What am I kidding? But Kyle Busch made a comment about just take the underbody off the cars. I don't know. I do worry about the mechanical components because I'm not entirely confident in how this car is designed. It seems like certain components of the car are actually weaker than they are stronger compared to previous iterations of the NASCAR car. But he's on to something. I mean, rip off the underbody, get rid of so much downforce that you really aren't gonna need for the most part, especially not at a short track. Get rid of it. Get it done. And if I want that, and I want them to get rid of, I think, the shifting. The 5-speed is killing them. First off, I don't know of a single car that's a manual transmission that is 5-speed. I don't know where they got that number, and I've been questioning it since the day of the announcement. I love the car in theory, but that was the one piece I could just never wrap my brain around. Why is it 5-speed? Go back to a 4-speed, reduce the downforce, give me more horsepower, and I keep thinking back to Le Mans, learning opportunity. Car seemed like it was pretty good. Let's use it. So I'm hoping that they're implementing some of that. I'm not entirely sure. Based off of what I've seen and what I've read, it doesn't sound like they're going to be doing anything with the underbody or the horsepower. If they make a horsepower change, and even this point, even if they do any other changes, it'll wait until 2024. So I'm actually, for the first time in a long time, I'm kind of hoping that we have what we once had, which was a 2 different package style race car. For the intermediates and the super speedways, I'm going to be honest, I don't really care if they don't change anything. I think the car is just fine on the intermediates and the plates, plates, if you will. But, short track road courses, I think they need to definitely do some revisions.
Yeah, the horsepower thing we're never going to get because of Toyota. I think that's probably, and I've been seeing that over and over, and I'm like, well, makes sense. They've done their part in ruining motorsports for decades, so that's just the way they're trying to do it here. The downforce thing, they keep on doing all this stuff, putting different splitters. It's at the end of the day, you need to mess with the back of the car. You could put a piece of tape on the back that is a spoiler, get rid of the bottom end, like what you're saying, get the damn cars off the ground, a foot off the ground, and have them things slammed to the ground like they used to at Martinsville.
Oh,
that was cool. Yeah, you would go and see that.
Right on the ground.
Because it was the rake, like they were talking. I was reading a story about the rake of the cars. The Cup car goes up like this, but Formula One cars go the other way. Gotta love my ability to see how my camera works. But how I'm working with my own camera. But that's the way the rake is, and that's part of the reason why they have so many issues with rain now, with how big their cars are and the visibility. Well, it's the same issue for when they drive on a short track because they have way too much braking power. They have much better brakes because it's based on a GT3 car for whatever reason. You have brakes that are essentially what they use in the GTD class in IMSA. You don't need that for a NASCAR. You can run a much lower tech brake package on the short tracks and road courses for that matter. Why they have the same gearbox platform that the supercars have. Why they didn't go at 6-speed is beyond me, and why they didn't go and have a gearing rule where 5th and 6th speed, 4, 5, and 6 are essentially overdrive. I don't know why. You could have decided to have it as making a 4-speed sequential, I'm not so sure is possible. So I guess they said they could do a 5-speed sequential. But what NASCAR in their infinite wisdom did was they made the gearing so low that, and they only run 650. So now the way the gearing is, they have to shift. And it's like, why the hell are you shifting on ovals? I only remember in my fandom going way back to Pocono. That's it. That's the only track where they shifted, and it made sense because you had 3 distinct corners. You had to have momentum coming off of 3 going up the front straightaway. So you'd go from 3rd to overdrive, which was 4th gear, and you'd shift down, usually back down to 3rd in turn 1, get back into 4th, going in on the long pond straightaway going into the tunnel. That's how they used to do it. You had shifting at road courses, but it wasn't like extreme, at Watkins Glen or Snoroma. But I don't know. I guess we all yearn for the old days, but then when you have people like Steve O'Donnell and Ben Kennedy at the helm, they don't live in reality they live in an alternative reality. It's the same kind of reality that Brian Cashman's lived in for 2.5 decades, which is why the Yankees have only won one World Series. So I just had to insert an insult for the Yankees sucking too while I was at it for my anger there. And then Jim France's obsession with sports car racing is why we have this unsafe race car that ends people's careers and put people in concussion protocol. But the car's not good the car should be a good road course car, but it isn't a good road course car. And it's worse for road courses than what they had before. And the short track package is an abomination. And they keep on putting Band-Aids on it over and over again. They don't want to listen to the drivers and what the drivers think, which is ridiculous. So, this is where we're going. I guess it took them two decades to find a good package for cookie cutters, or a decade and a half to find a cookie cutter package, but in the process they've ruined everything else. And the majority of tracks they have out here in the US that are still open, that aren't closing, since that's become a thing now, all the Karens and Kens that complain about noise, are short tracks and road courses. So I don't know where they're trying to go with that. All right, since we'll get back to racing, since we both had our opportunity to rant on a bunch of things there. I guess that's one of the reasons why having you on, Joe, is good, because at least I knew I could go and we could get on our soapboxes with some of these deals. We'll get into the Xfinity race at Road America. It became typical of a Road America NASCAR event. It became a endurance race. The Road America 180. I think it was the Henry 180 for some sort of gun company, of course. I forgot about the points. Sorry. So the points, as mentioned before, Buescher gets the win. He's now 11th. He's 11th in the playoff standings with his overall points, only 4 points behind Tyler Reddick, actually, and 11 behind Joey Logano. There's actually a decent battle there amongst all those guys. I said Byron was a points leader. He's a playoff points leader because of 4 wins, but Truex leads by 43 for the playoff points. And Byron, Truex, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, then all the one-win drivers: Bell, Chastain, Blaney, Logano, Reddick, Buescher, Stenhouse. Harvick plus 182 with 4 races to go. Brad Keselowski plus 151. Both of those guys look pretty solid without absolute disaster happening. Bubba Wallace gained near over double the amount of points that he had on the bubble. He was at 26, now he's at 54, plus 54. Michael McDowell plus 18 over Keebler Gibbs. AJ Allmendinger's minus 22. Daniel Suarez in the last 2 weeks went from being in the playoffs to being in bad shape, minus 34. William Clyde Elliott the second, minus 40. Alex Bowman, minus 42. So those two guys are sweating bullets for sure. Road America 180.
Can I make points about the points before?
Yeah, sure.
America, yeah, because this is my thing. If anybody knows me, I love the points and I love messing around and theoreticals. So every driver, because we're in a situation, we have 4 people who have not locked into the playoffs, 4 slots, and you got 4 races left. Everybody who's won a race is locked in. You can't have more than 16 winners at this point. So Harvick, at this point, it's pretty unrealistic to expect that he's going to drop out. He might not have a flashy time at the front, but 182 points, that's almost as good as locked in. And then you have Brad at plus 151, Bubba at plus 54. That's the one I really want to talk about. and then Michael McDowell at plus 18. So first off, Bubba Wallace has now put himself in a position where if at Michigan, Watkins Glen, and Indianapolis, right, if we do not have a new winner from those 3 races and he's still above the cut line, he could actually go into Daytona if he's able to pick up a few more points on Michael McDowell. He can go into Daytona locked in on points. He gapped himself so far from Michael McDowell on the playoff cut line that he now has an opportunity to, if he can just build up 6 or 7 points over McDowell, specifically over McDowell, in the next few weeks, he can go in with the potential to not even be eliminated, depending, of course, certain things need to fall certain ways. But if that happens, we're going to point to Richmond and say, that's what he did that day. You can only gain so many points in a race. He really, widened that gap. So props to Bubba, that team, Bubba and his entire team. I know they made some pit road error there at the end, but really at the end of the day, they bought themselves a lot of wiggle room, a lot more wiggle room than they had for sure. The other guy I want to get into, well, I guess we're talking about 2 guys here, is Chase Elliott. Earlier this week, Denny Hamlin made a comment on his podcast, Actions Detrimental, that he thinks Chase is going to make it on points. I think Denny's wrong. I want to go out there and say, in 4 races, to think you're going to pick up 40 points. I just want to put this in perspective. The people he has to pass, it's just like a race, right? The farther up you get towards the front during a single race, the harder it is going to be to get around those guys. It's the same way in the points. The farther up you go, the harder it is going to be to pass them. Chase Elliott has to pass Daniel Suarez, AJ Allmendinger, Ty Gibbs, and Michael McDowell if he's going to point his way in. The thing that those 4 guys have in common, they're all good at road courses. So where Denny Hamlin points to Chase Elliott and says he's so good over there, well, so is everyone in front of him. Gibbs has had a few good runs at road courses this year, won a few last year in the Xfinity Series. Michael McDowell, we all know, road course ringer, done very well. I believe he ran very well last year. I don't remember if he finished out the day well, but I remember he ran, between 3rd and 4th for a very significant portion of the rainy Watkins Glen race. AJ Allmendinger has wins at both of the road courses that we're going to go to in the next 3 weeks. And Suarez also has a win at Sonoma, but ran pretty decently at one point or another at both of the road courses that we're heading to over the next few weeks. So I don't know that I agree with Hamlin, and especially at 40 points out. I know Chase did very well this week, picked up 16 to the cut line, but given the way that he in particular has been running, I don't necessarily know that I would be pushing the narrative that I think Chase is going to make it on points. It's possible, don't get me wrong. But for him to make it on points means he's not only he is running really well, his opponents that he is most directly facing in the points are not. I just don't see that part happening. I can see him running well. I can't see them not running well, unless, of course, certain circumstances bar them from running well if they get caught up in a wreck, mechanical failures, whatever. But I'm still under the impression, to me even, I think Gibbs and Allmendinger are really the only 2 drivers left. I think they have an opportunity to point their way in. I just don't see Suarez or Elliott or anybody back of that for reasons of realism. I just don't see them pointing their way in. I think everybody 19th back has to be on the mentality that I need to win to make it in.
Yeah, I guess in Denny's mind, because of what Clyde is and his history, he's going on history that it's possible. But the way that Clyde's been running this year, and for that matter, the 48 car, they have not had the speed of their teammates, especially the 24, to be fair. The 24 has been the consistent one. Larson's being Larson. 21 was an anomaly and a work as much as anything that, one, he had speed every week, everywhere, and he could win almost everywhere, which, granted, he has that talent, but that was the best of everything happened in one shot. Kyle Larson, somebody that'll have speed, but it can go away. He's going to be inconsistent at times. He's going to have his moments, even when Denny Hamlin doesn't put him in the wall. At the end of the day, that's what he is. Last year he disappeared. He had no speed. for a good part of the season. Did get his share of wins, but didn't have any speed. Elliott was the one that was up there, and really the only one. I mean, Byron had speed early in the year and disappeared, came back in the playoff, and then Bowman was Bowman. Bowman's continuing to be Bowman, but when you miss however many weeks with injury, you don't have that opening. It's kind of funny how everyone's like, oh, the waiver. Well, you can get a waiver, but you actually have to do the job. It's what made Kyle Busch doing what he did in 15 all the more significant. It's why Tony Stewart coming back after however 7-8 races missed, winning a race, and then still having to battle and going on that run for about a month and a half, I think, essentially around that win at Sonoma was what got him into the playoffs. That was with a top 30 rule. They got rid of that rule altogether now. So I mean, the Hendrick cars, so it's not out of the realm that either of them doesn't go out there and win within the next 4 weeks. But it isn't looking great for them based on a lot of factors.
Yeah, at least one of them's going to miss it.
Yeah, it's looking pretty likely on that end. Move on to Xfinity here. Everyone was picking AJ Allmendinger. He chose to sacrifice running at Richmond practice and qualifying, started tailback there. Didn't really affect him crazily, to be fair, but he ran a little better than he usually did, so maybe he just has to start missing practice and qualifying. That might be the new gimmick. That must be the new Jeff Burton gimmick. He qualified on pole at Road America, but his car wasn't there after the first few laps. I'll tell you who had the car. His name was Justin Allgaier. He dominated the race, led 42 of the race's 49 laps, and Allmendinger led 5. So literally the whole race was run by 2 guys. And but in the end, Justin Allgaier does not come home with a victory at Road America again. I think the guy should have about 4 wins there for as good as he's been. I mean, when he ran for Turner and he ran out of fuel, I think there's at least 2 instances, at least one instance of running out of fuel and one something effed up and got run over. Then with juniors, he's won once with junior, and I think he probably had another chance. So he had another, I think this could be the 4th or 5th win at Road America alone for Justin Allgaier, but instead he's ends up 18th, gets a lot of good, gets 2 playoff points and gets a lot of stage points. Cole Custer is another one who will end up aggrieved after running up front all day, ends up getting wrecked in a deal caused by Connor Mozak, and Sammy Smith was in there. I'm trying to remember who was. Yeah, so that was 0-0. Oh, it was Sammy Smith, the 0-0, the 8, and that was going in at turn 5. All right. Yeah, Connor Mozak oiled down the track, or was that John Hunter? No, John Hunter oiled down the track, and then Connor Mozak, I think, oiled down the track too. Yeah, so that was fun. John Hunter Nemechek was trying to hit everything but the lottery. He was trying to win Mega Millions, and by the end, he hit the Mega Millions. It was a pothole in between the coming off of turn 12 and 13 when he ran off the racetrack, destroyed the whole front end and oiled down the track. So that was a good job by him. Gave up a lot of points in the regular season standings. But one person who can leave very happy is Wisconsin's own Sam Mayer. Gets his first career Xfinity win, young gun, somebody who was looked at as one of the next big things in NASCAR, brings money to the table, family money to the table, but he actually does have talent. Finally breaks through with that first win. Parker Kligerman, after all the craziness that ended up happening on the green white checkered, finishes second. Austin Hill third. Sage Karam with his best career finish running for Sam Hunt. So it proves once again Sam Hunt is making a lot of progress with their equipment. And Karam, when you give him a good race car, his talent has never been an issue for Sage Karam, but you give him a good race car, he can go and win. And he almost had a chance to win that race on Saturday. Herbst finishes 5th. Josh Berry, I don't know how the hell he finished 6th, but he finished 6th. Kaz Gralla 7th. Josh Balicki, another Wisconsin driver, from 11th, finished 8th for DGM. Allmendinger, Bruckshot Jones finishes 10th. There were actually 27 cars on the lead lap. So if you had bad shit happen, it went to hell for you, like Allgaier. But yeah, I mean, this race was pretty straightforward. Allgaier dominated the race, and Cole Custer's won 2 road course races, or 1.5 road course races, because I don't know how we really can count that Chicago race as a race. But those 2 guys were up front the whole day, and then calamity ensued, and Allgaier ends up running off the track just before the carousel there, loses the race. Cole Custer gets run over as part of his collateral damage of the 8, 10, and 18 incident, or he was part of it. He got moved over. I think he was the one that got moved by Barry, or I don't know. But whatever the case, 2 guys that were looking like they were going to have great points days end up not having anything to show for it. And Sam Mayer, who it wasn't like he was worried about really making the playoffs. I think he was in a good position to make the playoffs. They have a lot more races to go, but locks himself in, gets the monkey off his back with what do you call? I'm trying to remember his Marty Lindley as his crew chief, a legendary short track racer. They brought up his father. I always remember Marty Lindley because of the Hooters Pro Cup and how he would win, him and Bobby Gill, and they'd win every damn race. And there was the one guy who drove the 73 car. That was the other guy that would always win. All those guys would win, and Chad Chaffin, because he ran the Jackaroo barbecue sauces car. But they would all win them races, and Marty Lindley has become a great crew chief, has been with Sam Mayer, and I think now that he's won that race, Joe, I think it's really opened up his opportunity. I think we may not see it immediately here in the next few weeks, but I think that the relaxation he gets from that, the tension release that he gets from that, is going to benefit him once he gets into the playoffs here in little over 6-7 weeks' time at Bristol, or after Bristol, actually.
Yeah, what's funny to me is I was thinking, I was at work, so I didn't get to tune into the full race, but I saw the finish, and I was thinking to myself after that race, I was like, it's kind of funny to think how long we've known Sam Mayer now, right? Back in 2020, Josh Berry, Sam Mayer split that ride, and it might have been 2021. No, I believe 2021 was when Josh started running the 8 car and Sam the 1 with I'm sorry, I'm thinking 1 year too early. They were splitting in 2021, and to me, Mayer was always a little quieter. Josh Berry, of course, won 2 races that first year, and with 2 different teams, 2 different crew chiefs, 2 different whatever. You name it, it was different, and obviously erupted more onto the scene. Sam Mayer, he had a few moments. I remember he had a 4th place finish at Martinsville, but never really got too hot. Never was really in the picture too much. Last year, we started to see, I feel like at the beginning of the summer and into some of the summer stretch, we saw some speed. We saw some, hey, he's pretty talented. He might be able to do something here. And by the end of the year, he kind of fell off, and his teammates came more to the forefront. This year, Junior Motorsports has been struggling all around. It's been a struggle for the entire organization, it seems. They've had good runs. They've had opportunities, but especially these past few weeks, Sam Mayer has really kind of turned things up. 2nd place finishes Pocono, and you never know, with that extra lap that extra half a lap that they never ended up getting to run, he might have pulled something on Austin Hill. He was within a car length. He could have done something with him. And I've noticed he's gotten a little bit better. He's becoming a little more refined with his craft, and I feel like that's what I usually hear, what I usually talk about when I talk about these Xfinity drivers coming in. Now with this win at Road America, first off, you're right. He gets that monkey off his back. He locks himself into the playoff. position that he wasn't in last year, where he got to lock himself in that early in advance, despite having X amount of races left, more than the Cup Series does. But, for him, I think this is bigger than that. I really think, and from things I've been hearing and reading, there were probably some pretty serious questions about whether or not Sam Mayer could hang with it in the Xfinity Series. And I think him winning this weekend proved that, hey, I can. Maybe I haven't been my best the entire time, but I can hang with it. And I think it opens up an opportunity. Really, I think I'm more concerned about next year. Because right now, Junior Motorsports, they're not really in a position where I feel like any of the four of them are winning a championship this season, unless they all turn up the dial. But Sam Mayer in particular, I was starting to have questions, and I had been reading some material that implied that there had been talks that Sam Mayer would not be back with JRM next year. Obviously, it's a little harder to take, all the stuff that you read that are rumors and the silly season and whatnot. It's harder to take that serious when you don't have anything to back it up. But, there's always that possibility. It's much harder to get a ride than it is to lose it. And for Mayer in particular, I think this win probably saves him, even if he's not with Junior Motorsports next year. I think having this win at least opens up his opportunities if Junior Motorsports does not renew the contract with him. So he did himself a lot of favors on top of the short term. He potentially bought himself a much longer life range in the sport.
I didn't know that was in play, but I figured the check was going to help him with that. But I also look at the Xfinity product and the business model that they have going on there in the Xfinity Series. And if I figured SHR would have had no problem opening up a ride for him there, I think Riley Herbst could have been bumped out the side, and Ford would have taken Sam Mayer gladly. Joe Gibbs Racing wouldn't have minded a check from him, even if he doesn't get along with Keebler Gibbs. Basically, I think any team in that series wouldn't have had an issue taking that paycheck and the sponsorship, but it makes a lot of sense that it obviously is a performance. It's a performance-based business, and if you're not performing, then you have you don't really have a leg to stand on. That's that's the thing there. But getting that victory, it's huge for him. Locks himself into the playoff for sure, and gives himself a little bit of relief to not have to say that, after winning so easily in every other level that he's been in, having to struggle to win in this level, maybe now he can drive with a little more finesse, drive with a little more with a greater head, on the shoulders there. The points after Road America going to Michigan, Austin Hill and John Hunter Nemechek are separate. Austin Hill's up by 14 points now. John Hunter Nemechek has one more playoff point, one more stage win, because of the one more stage win. Allgaier is 40 points back, so that's basically the regular season standings. Cole Custer is 84 back. There are six races to go or something, but 84 points is a lot with the way Hill and Nemechek have been running. Sam Mayer is then next with Chandler Smith, Sammy Smith, and then Jeb Burton. Those are all the winners. 6, 7, 8 winners. Then Josh Berry is 9th, Daniel Hemrick 10th, Riley Herbst 11th, and Sheldon Creed 12th, 22 points ahead of Parker Kligerman for the cutoff. And then after that, it's getting kind of sketch. Buckshot Jones minus 61, Brett Moffitt minus 82. So definitely gonna be needing a win for a lot of those guys. Yeah, Bristol's when they open their playoffs in the middle of September. So right now, after this race at Road America, they got 6 races to go. You have quite a diverse group of races. Michigan, 2 Mile Oval. You have Daytona Super Speedway, Darlington, which is Darlington, Kansas Speedway, which is a cookie cutter, and then 2 road courses sandwiched into that. So quite a diverse group of races. There's going to be a lot of cup. There's going to be cup participation. So possibilities of winning races kind of get taken away with some of these cup guys being in there. So we'll definitely look into that for sure. In the truck series, they ran the Worldwide Express 250 at Richmond on Friday night, and it was Carson Hocevar winning his 3rd race of 2023. In the process, Corey Heim gets the regular season title, which really isn't that shocking. It was pretty likely that he was going to get that regular season title anyway without some sort of miracle happening. We'll get into the results here. Hocevar wins. Ty Majeski started on pole and dominated the race, but got past with 3 laps to go. He went there. Hocevar pitted for tires. Majeski didn't. And that was really where it was. Corey Heim led 9 laps. Ben Rhodes led 9 laps. Those 2 guys were up front most of the day. Heim finished 6th. Rhodes finished 12th. No movement in the playoff grid. The 10 drivers that were going into Richmond were the same 10 drivers that left Richmond as playoff drivers. So Corey Heim, Zane Smith, Grant Enfinger, Christian Eckes, and Carson Hocevar, all the multi-time winners this year. So that's 5. And then you have Ben Rhodes as 6th. Then you have Ty Majeski, who was 2nd overall in points, so he gets bonus points because of bonus playoff points. Nick Sanchez as a rookie, so he will win Truck Series Rookie of the Year. Wasn't like he really was worried about that, I don't think. Matt DiBurrito actually makes the playoffs, just something. And Matt Crafton, yet again, the wily veteran, been at it about 170 years, and he's made the playoffs yet again. 3 Thor Sport trucks make it. I wonder which one didn't. Stuart Friesen does not make the playoffs. Unusual for him. He's been a contender at times. He's made the Final 4 a couple of times, so unfortunate for him. Then you have Tanner Gray for Tricon. When your teammate is a regular season champion, albeit he's a much different talent than Tanner Gray is in stock cars. Chase Purdy for Kyle Busch Motorsports ends up missing the playoffs by a ton. And Ankrum in the Hattori truck never really has worked since he's went over there. Jake Garcia missed a race, but he had his moments. Taylor Gray didn't get to run every race, and he wasn't that far off really when you consider he gave up 3 races of points. If those are the 2 guys, I would think that probably would have been the best chances outside of Stuart Friesen. But yeah, I mean, Carson Hocevar, now that he's decided not to wreck every single week, I guess is showing the kind of talent that a lot of people have believed he's had. What Ross Chastain sees in him as his protege, and hey, he's definitely a favorite. I mean, the momentum is working in his favor. Nice has been in this spot once before with Ross Chastain trying to win a championship. I think the momentum got away from them during the playoff, and then when it came to Homestead that year, they just didn't have it. But I think it's going the other way this year. I mean, albeit this playoff is going to take 8 years to finish, so who knows? Trying to maintain momentum from August all the way into early November is a whole other thing, but Carson Hocevar and that 42 team is looking really, really good right now, Joe.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Zane Smith was the one I was really looking at earlier in the season. Won Daytona again, won Coda again. Started off very hot, very similar to how he did in 22. things are changing. He didn't win the regular season championship this year like he did last year. Now, obviously, do I think just because he did or didn't do certain things that he did last year, is that going to mean he wins a championship or doesn't win a championship? No. But I think the threats are different this year. Last year, Corey Heim, I don't even think was getting points in this series. Hocevar was in a very different place career-wise. Christian Eckes was like barely on my radar last year. And that team, the 19 team, certainly wasn't on the radar last year with Kraus. So this pool of playoff drivers is very different than the pool we were working with for one reason or another last year. So I wouldn't feel comfortable. I know normally you kind of think, all right, well, in the Cup Series, generally you can kind of point to these 4 drivers based on their season and their history in the playoff. These are probably the 4 who have the best shot of getting eliminated first and early on and so forth. I don't necessarily feel like that this year. I do kind of point to the bottom 2, Matt Crafton and Matt DiBenedetto, and maybe even Nick Sanchez is probably the 3 most likely to get eliminated in the first round, or 2 of the 3, I should say, since only 2 will be eliminated from the first round. But after that, I think it's a pretty well up in the air. It's a little bit of a bloodbath. You get one surprise winner and everything's going to tip over. I'm really interested to see how this playoff ends up. I would say going in, my favorites are probably going to be Hocevar and, I'm probably going to say Hocevar and Heim over Smith. I think Zane Smith has gotten a little bit cold, and Hocevar obviously picking up at the right time, but Hocevar has really been a little pretty good all year. He's been fairly consistent, maybe not always up at the front, but his wins, I feel like, have come pretty spread out, and to have 3 of them is a pretty good sign. So we'll see. I'm very interested in this playoff, though. As a whole, I think, given how strangely the truck season works with how spread out some of the races are, especially you point towards the end of the year, it's going to be a little abnormal, and it will probably be harder to keep momentum. So if you get any momentum, find the formula and the magic potion to keep it, because you're going to want it. This is not a playoff that runs like the Xfinity, where it's, pretty straightforward, almost 7 consecutive weeks, Cup 10 consecutive weeks. It's not like that with this series. It's going to be really spread out. It's a different mentality. And if these younger drivers can keep that, or for some of them, Grant and Finger, Matt DiBenedetto and Matt Crafton, who have been around a little bit longer, if they can keep their heads level-headed and not allow that pressure to absorb them over such a long period of time, one of them could really end up doing very well and pulling away from the rest.
Yeah, and I think, right now it's a 3-headed monster, one from every manufacturer, with Zane Smith, who is on his way likely to the Cup Series next year. And then you have Corey Heim, which who knows, with Toyota's great driver development program, who knows where he's going to go if he somehow or another can get that championship for Tricon. And then you have Carson Hocevar, who I think is also going to be moving up, whether it's Spire driven, whether it's Junior Motorsports, et cetera, et cetera. I think he's going to have options for sure. So at the start of the year, we didn't know where the Truck Series was at. We didn't know what kind of talent we're going to have after. It looked kind of weak. And there are a lot of young talents there, a lot of rough around the edges drivers, but some of them are really good. Sanchez, Garcia amongst them. But those 3 guys are 3 guys that are going to be trending upward and will be Cup drivers here in the next few years and have the ability to stand out and hold their own in the Truck Series. So that'll be good to see. But before that, they'll be running at IRP here, and we'll preview that next week on the GSP for episode 181. So we'll move forward. Belgian Grand Prix, since even with Josh being on, we were limiting the amount of time we spent on Formula One coverage, and since Josh isn't on, I can limit what I say, or because I really don't want to give this guy that much air, maybe Alonso would be near, but yeah, okay. Well, thank you. At least One-Eyed Marco concede that. The results of the Belgian Grand Prix, well, we know who won that. They won the sprint race, then he wins the race from sixth by 22 seconds. So great for him. He didn't get the fastest lap, though. Lewis Hamilton got the fastest lap, finished fourth, 49.6 seconds behind, and 17 seconds behind Charles Leclerc after getting the tires to do that fastest lap. Fish lips over Sergio Perez, Charles Leclerc, the podium. Leclerc qualified on pole on Friday for the race. Hamilton, Alonso, your top five. Best run for Alonso in a while. George Russell, sixth. Lando Norris, seventh. Ocon, after a really bad period for Alpine. I mean, they're still in a bad period. Keep on getting rid of team principals. Lance Stroll and Yuki Tsunoda actually getting a point. Oscar Piastri, after scoring a second place finish in the sprint, him and Carlos Sainz get into it. Both of them don't finish the race. The Williams cars had pace but couldn't keep the tires under them, so that left them wondering what they possibly could have had from the day. In terms of Fish Lips points lead, he's got 111 plus, he's got 125 point lead, so that's five race wins. And we're at, what race were we at? I mean, how many damn races have we had? There's been 13 races so far, and there will be 23. So 23, yeah. So 9 races to go in the season, go, is it 8, 9, 10 races to go? Sorry, 10 races to go. So the earliest I think he can lock it up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess he could lock it up in Japan. I would think that would be where he could lock it up, probably. Japan or Qatar is the earliest he could open up, or he can lock up the championship there. So that'll be great for the world. I was getting into the other drivers' standings there. Perez takes a 40-point lead on Alonso. Alonso's only a point ahead of Lewis Hamilton for third in the Drivers' Championship. Charles Leclerc and George Russell are tied at 99 points for fifth in the Drivers' Championship. Carlos Sainz 7 points back. Lando Norris finishes seventh, had a rough weekend there, a little too much aero or too much downforce on the McLaren. They were prepared for rain. It worked. When it got dry, wasn't so good. In no man's land, he's 23 points behind Carlos Sainz and 30 behind Leclerc and Russell. But I think the McLaren car will be all right, and he'll be able to get in that mix. Stroll actually getting points was something for him. Ocon benefited from Piastri's misfortune to stay in 10th, point ahead of Piastri. And right now, still only 3 drivers who have not scored points. One of them, of course, is not on the grid anymore. Logan Sargent, Daniel Ricciardo, 2 guys who have not scored points right now. In the constructors' standings, we already know who's going to win the constructors. Mercedes is 51 points ahead of Aston Martin, and they're 56 points ahead of Ferrari. So now Ferrari is actually in the mix to possibly pass Aston Martin for third in the Constructors' Championship. McLaren and Alpine are basically in their own worlds in fifth and sixth. Williams and Haas are tied for seventh in Constructors at 11 points. Alfa Romeo with 9, and AlphaTauri with Yuki Tsunoda's 10th place finish adds another point to get to 3 points on the season. They'll be taking their summer break, and they'll be back at the end of August at the Dutch Grand Prix. All right, roundup time. The Formula E London E-Prix was action-packed, a lot of carnage, a lot of argy-bargy, as Calvin Fish would like to say. But Jake Dennis, the British driver, at home gets the Formula E World Championship with a steady double podium performance at the London E-Prix double, finishes second in race 1 and locks up the championship in that race. Second race finishes third and gets the fastest lap. Nick Cassidy runs into teammate Sebastian Buemi, gets knocked out of the race, which basically eliminated him from the championship. Then he goes out and wins race 2 in the rain. Mitch Evans, the other Kiwi with Nick Cassidy, the Jaguar factory driver, wins race 1, second in race 2, finishes 2 points behind Nick Cassidy for second in the Drivers' Championship. Pascal Wehrlein, who early points leader, fourth. Jean-Eric Verne, the former multi-time champion of Formula E, finishes fifth, 2 points out of former series champion Sebastian Buemi I mentioned earlier. Gunther, after a brutal start to the year, moved himself up. Sam Bird in his last race for Jaguar. Antonio Felix da Costa, former champion of the series, 9th. Norman Nato for Nissan, 10th. Defending world champion Stoffel Van Dorn finishes 11th in points. In the team's championship, Envision wins by 12 points over their factory supplier. So Jaguar gets a 1-2 finish there in the Constructors' Championship. Then the two Porsche teams, the privateer team Avalanche Andretti, who wins the World Championship with Jake Dennis and the Tag Heuer Porsche. The DS Penske team, Maserati in 6th. Then the two Nissans, 7th and 8th, the Nissan factory, and then the Neo McLaren team. And then the Neo cars, and then the two Mahindra-powered vehicles or teams round out the field. So brutal year for Mahindra. Hopefully they'll come back with something more in season 10. In supercars at Eastern Creek, I'm pretty sure you don't need to know, but Chevy's won. You don't need to watch that crap to know that the way that the results and the way the BOP is for the supercars. In race 18, it was Brody Kostecki, who's going to make his Cup debut in a couple weeks' time. And in race 19 is Shane Van Gisbergen, who likely is coming to NASCAR next year. And so is coming to NASCAR next year, has basically been confirmed by Jamie Whincup, the owner of 888. Brody Kostecki leads the Repco Supercars Championship points by 41 over his teammate, Will Brown, the Coca-Cola Erebus Chevy team. Shane Van Gisbergen's 54 points behind. His teammate Brock Feeney is 4th, 67 points behind. Two-team race for the championship there. Chaz Mostert, the best Ford driver, in 5th for Walkinshaw Andretti United. The other Fords, there's Cam Waters. That's the only other Ford that's in the top 10 in points. That is god-awful. The next race for the supercars will be a couple weeks' time at the Bend Motorsports Park for the OTR Super Sprint before they run the two Enduros, the Sandown 500 and the Bathurst 1000. So that'll be the calendar for supercars. World Superbikes at the Czech Republic. More of the same there in terms, World SVK, in World Superbike, the results there. Johnny Ray actually goes and gets a win and over Toprak Raskat-Lioku and Danilo Petrucci in race 1. The Super Pole race, Toprak Raskat-Lioku over Ray and Alvaro Bautista. And then massive tire failure in race 2 while Raskat-Lioku was on his way to winning. Opens the door for Alvaro Bautista to get a win over Danilo Petrucci and Johnny Ray. As it stands, what could have been a bigger points haul for Toprak ends up leaving the Czech Republic 47. 74 points behind Bautista in the World Championship. So unfortunate result there. The next round of the championship, they're taking their summer break as well. Like Formula One, they'll be back in early September at Manicourt for the French Grand Prix. Then they'll be racing at Aragon in Portugal. The second race, I think they run at, I don't know, I thought they ran at Portugal earlier in the year, but I guess they didn't. And then so Aragon, I thought Aragon, that's Spain, sorry. So they're in Spain, and then they'll be running at Estoril, and it looks like would be the end of their season. Okay. F2 and F3 were at Spa last week. We'll go with F3 first, we'll just go F2 first. It's my show. I can do what I want. The results at Spa, Enzo Fittipaldi gets the win in the sprint race and Jack Doohan in the feature. So, family lineage, of course, Enzo Fittipaldi, the grandson of Emerson Fittipaldi, and Jack Doohan, the son of five-time world motorcycle champion Mick Doohan. So we'll get into the sprint results. Enzo Fittipaldi, Teo Pocher, Dennis Hauger, Victor Martins, and Jack Doohan. Frederick Vestiu just got announced today will be running one of the practice one sessions for Mercedes coming up in Mexico. Iwasa, Beauchamp, Leclerc, Zane Maloney, Jack Crawford 14th, Juan Manuel Correa 16th, Kush Miney in 18th. Okay. Then in the feature race, Jack Doohan over Teo Pocher, Enzo Fittipaldi, Zane Maloney, Victor Martins, Richard Vachor, Ollie Bierman, Kush Miney, Roman Stanek, Ralph Beauchamp. Brutal weekend for the Americans. Juan Manuel Correa was the last classified finisher in that race. Pocher with his run at Spa, with his weekend at Spa, goes and I guess Benavides got fired. So there you go. Benavides been so bad he got dumped. Ordeal and Nissani. Yeah. So yeah. The Teo Pocher going into the summer break has a 12-point lead on Frederick Vesti. They still have three races, so 6 rounds total. Or I guess 3 rounds, 6 races to go, whatever the hell you want to call it. 12-point lead on Vesti now. Basically turning into a 2-horse race. Iwasa and Doohan separated by 4 points. Victor Martins in 5th. I think if you're in the top 3 or of Formula 2 or top 4 or something, you'll get enough super license points. So that's where the battle is. So basically Pocher and Vesti are good to go. Don't think they're going to have a ride in Formula 1 though, which tells you how great the ladder system is in Formula 2. Iwasa might be the one that actually gets a ride out of it. And so we'll see what happens with that. They'll take their summer break. In F3, they now only have one more round, 2 more races to go after the summer break, which is at Monza. So points coming to a head there. The sprint race was won by Caio Collet. Taylor Barnard finished second. Paul Aaron, Johnny Edgar, Franco Colapinto, Balder, Soloff, Browning, Fornioli, Gregoire Saucy finished 10th. Sophia Flörsch actually finished 12th. Kalen Frederick 13th. Going through some of these other guys. Haven't even heard of some of them. Probably just got hired. And then in the feature race, Taylor Barnard gets his first win. Christian Mansell, Bedrin, Garcia, Colette, Sebastian Montoya finished 6th. Sophia Flörsch gets 7th. Paul Aaron, Pepe Marti, and Franco Colapinto rounds out the top 10. Gabriel Bortoleto is 38 points ahead of Paul Aaron. So right now, I think as it stands, I don't know what the maximum amount of points. I guess you can get 28 points in a feature race with the pole and the fastest lap or some crap like that, or 2 points for pole and then 1 for the fastest lap. So I think that's the maximum you can score in a feature. And then in the In the sprint race, I think the maximum you can score is 11 from what I see here. So 28 and then so 39. So essentially, Bortoleto just has to, if he scores a point, if he can score a point in either race at Monza, he will be the Formula 3 world champion. Behind him, though, Aaron Marti, Zach O'Sullivan, and Franco Colapinto are only separated by 6 points. Bogdanovic is in 6th, Gabriel Mini in 7th. There's less than 20 points separating those 6 drivers. Goth, Fornioli, Collette in a battle there from 8th through 10th. Points are pretty close, 16 points from 8th to 13th. So still a lot to play for those drivers with a couple races left in their season going into their off season and battling for rides in F2 and elsewhere. In F1 Academy, I'm trying to motor through this. There's Abby pulling. Oh, that's not good. Marta Garcia gets a race 3 win. After, so standings, so calendar and results. So go back there. So Neri Marti and then Marta Garcia getting wins in race 2 in race 3. In race 1, we'll get in there. So Marti over Pulling and Lovenfoss, Buller, Hamda Al-Kabasi, Marta Garcia, Hamda Al-Kabasi, Caceres, Schreiner, Grant. Race 2, Garcia over Buller, Hamda Al-Kabasi, and Hamda Al-Kabasi, Marti, Schreiner, Pulling, Edgar, Dehus, and Bianca Bustamante. And then Marta Garcia, Buller, Lovenfoss, Marti, Hamda Al-Kabasi, Edgar, Hamda Al-Kabasi, Schreiner, Gilks, and Chong for Prema. So they're changing drivers in Formula One Academy too, conveniently. They ran the short course, the old course that they used to have at Paul Ricard for the Formula One. Marta Garcia, 48-point lead on Buller, and then add another 56 points on Hamda Al-Kabasi in 3rd. Neri Marti and Abby Pulling rounding out the top 5. Their last round 3 races will be at Austin in the middle of October there. The NHRA finished their Western swing at Snoroma and saw the Gage Herrera get the Western swing sweep. First time they said since 2009 that anybody has swept the Western swing. Justin Ashley won in Top Fuel and J.R. Todd won in Funny Car. Justin Ashley beating Antron Brown in the Top Fuel. Ashley beat number 1 qualifier Austin Prock in the 2nd round, along with Doug Coletta in the 1st and Josh Hart in the semis. 377 with a 328.78 miles an hour. Antron Brown beat Mike Salinas, Brittany Force, and his bestie Steve Torrance in the semifinals on his way to the final there. Former winner, swept the Western swing himself in the past. So J.R. Todd from the number 8 spot goes and beats number 1 qualifier Bob Tasca in the 2nd round. Then Matt Hagan and Chad Green, who was trying to go for his first career win there in the final. And in Pro Stock, they didn't run last week, so go to Pro Stock Motorcycle. Gage Herrera had been off for a couple of races, right back into it, gets a bye run first round. Ingwerson red lights against him in the 2nd round. Herrera just flat out runs Karen Stouffer in the semis, and then Matt Smith, I guess, broke because there's no run there. Matt Smith started from the number 2 spot, beats Lance Bonham, who red lit by a country mile, then Steve Johnson, who had mechanical, and Eddie Krawick in a run after giving up 0.04 of a second on a tree. So that's that. The standings going to Brainerd in a few weeks' time. Justin Ashley has a 32-point lead on Steve Torrance. The cutoff right now is 16 points. Clay Millican over Sean Langdon for the top 10. Then in funny car, Matt Hagan has a 19-point lead on Ron Capps. Chad Green actually third in points, so credit to him. J.R. Todd gets himself a little more solidly into the top 10, eighth in points right now. Pro Stock didn't run last time, but Glenn over 200-point lead on Hartford and Coughlin. Kyle Koretsky 17 points up on the cut line above Bo Butner and 22 on Jerry Tucker. And in Pro Stock Motorcycles, similar, nearly 360-point lead. Gage Herrera, he's already clinched a countdown berth because he's basically won the majority of the races this year. Hector Arana, 2 points out of Eddie Krawick for second. It's actually a good battle between Arana, Krawick, and Matt Smith. Kelly Klontz, 8 points out of Ryan Ayler for the cutoff there. Kyle Busch getting into SRX, going in, won the race at Motor Mile last week on Thursday Night Thunder, and his debut ran into about 2 or 3 people in the process. To do it, they don't have the results from Motor Mile, which is always great. Tells you who's working on their reports and stuff when they don't even have their stuff updated. Trying to go through here, not a home run, because it probably didn't work, because of course it wasn't going to work. And local short, Johnny Benson is going to be at Berlin Raceway, the Michigan native, the former ASA champion, former winner in all 3 categories of NASCAR, Johnny Benson Jr. So he'll be driving there in he'll be driving in SRX this weekend, or this Thursday, I mean. And then the points standings, going to that. So the points standings after 3 races, No Neck has a 21-point lead on Marco Andretti and a 24-point lead on Tony Stewart. Haley Deegan bringing up the rear because she sucks. Paul Tracy got suspended because he's destroyed millions of dollars worth of equipment, I think, through 2.5 years of racing in the Camping World SRX. So I think, so the race results page brings you to the point standings page for Toby Christie's. I don't think anybody from Toby Christie's website listens, but so then you have to go on the race results camping. So then you have to go through that way to get it. Kyle Busch over Clint Boyer, Tony Stewart, Brad Keselowski, and Ryan Newman were your top 5. You had, I'm trying to see who else. So Labonte was 7th, Deegan 8th, Marco Andretti 9th, Tracy 10th, and Ken Schrader was 12th. So, Ken Schrader, I haven't seen Ken Schrader that angry in a long, long time. So credit to Paul Tracy on that. MotoGP will be back this coming weekend after their summer break, running in the British Grand Prix. So right now, the standings going into the second half of the season, Pecco Bagnaia has a 35-point lead on Jorge Martin, 36 on Marco Bezzecchi, Brad Binder, Johan Zarco rounding out the top 5. Luca Marini is just out as 11 points behind Zarco and from 5th and 6th there. And Ducati, of course, leading the constructors. Don't need to tell you that. All the Ducatis have. Pirelli, they'll be providing the tires for Moto2, Moto3. Sam Lowe's is going to World Superbikes. We already went through that. Tony Arbolino, 8-point lead on Pedro Acosta. And Jake Dixon is 44 points behind Alonso Lopez in 4th, Aaron Canet in 5th. Joe Roberts is in 18. Sean Dillon Kelly, one of a bunch of riders that haven't scored points so far in 2023. Okay, IMSA Road America. We're almost there, people. Sorry, especially to my co-host who's had to wait for me motoring through all of this. Okay, so they'll be running at Road America, and the IMSA Sports Car Weekend, the Road America 500, whatever, and they'll have the brand new repaved track there. They'll have all four still have the Lamborghini Super Trofeo, the MX-5 Cup, which will be really cool there. Michelin Pilot Challenge, 38 cars in that field, and then 46 cars in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. This is the usual suspects in the GTP category, with the addition of Harry Tinknell and Jimmy Bruni in the Proton competition WeatherTech Porsche number 59, throwing back to Brumos Racing because they use similar colors. The two Porsches from Penske. You'll have the other Porsche customer with JDC Miller, Vanderhelm, and Rockefeller. You'll have the two Acuras, the 10 and the 60, the two Cadillacs, the 01 and 31, and the two BMWs, the 24 and the 25. In LMP2, 7 entries there. Kurtz and Hanley in the CrowdStrike car. Tower Motorsports doesn't have one of their drivers there, but Louis Delatraz, Stephen Thomas, Mikkel Jensen, TDS, their teammate John Falb and Guido Vandergarder in the 35. Era Motorsports, Dwight Merriman, Ryan DL, Dennis Anderson, Ed Jones, high class, and the PR1 Matheson, 52, Ben Keating and Paul Loup Chatin. In LMP3, there will be 8 cars. Ave Motorsports, Seth Lucas, Tonis Kazimets, 13, Ori Fidan, Matt Bell. So the AWAs will have 2 cars. JR3 will have 2 cars. Sean Creek racing with Barbosa. Gar Robinson not running with why am I forgetting his João Barbosa this week. Josh Burdon will be his teammate. Jerry Kraut, Scott Andrews, JDC Miller will be running though. In GT Pro, the Corvette Racing Team, Pfaff Motorsports, Porsche, Vassar Sullivan, Lexus, Harder Racing, Aston, and then the WeatherTech Racing, Mercedes. The 16 entries in GT Daytona, usual drivers there. Trying to see if there's anybody different. No, the additions will be Racer's Edge with Wayne Taylor Racing, Mario Farnbacher, Ashton Harrison, and Jared Andretti and Gabby Chavez with the Andretti Autosport Aston. It sounds like that's the class they're going to be moving to next year. So that'll be interesting. I don't think that it makes a lot of sense. I think LMP2 makes more sense, but whatever. Michael Andretti's all that money to spill. I guess he can choose where he puts it. Rally Finland, coming up this weekend. You're going to have Jari-Matti Latvala making a return to race, while for first time in 4 years, Kalle Rovanperä dominating the championship. So he's trying to increase his points lead in the championship there. Website. Yeah, there we go. The teams and drivers, results and standings. Right now in the WRC, Kalle Rovanperä is 55 points ahead of Efren Evans and 58 points out of Thierry Neuville. Tanak is in fourth. So the battle for second is actually very intriguing, but it really isn't otherwise. I'm trying to see what the Rally Finland, we're trying to see the entry list. Do they have the entry list there? No, we'll see that. They're supposed to start the race. The recce is going to be on Wednesday, and then the actual rally starts on Thursday. There you go. In terms of the Rally 1 cars, once this thing actually decides to load eventually, there will be 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cars in the Rally 1 category. 4 Toyotas, as I mentioned, with Rovanperä, Efren Evans, Takamoto Katsuda, and their team principal, Jari-Matti Latvala, making a return to the driver's seat. Hyundai will field 3 cars, Neuville, Lappi, and Suninen. And then the Ford M Sport team will have Tanak and Pierre-Louis Loubet running for the 9 cars there. And the Rally 2, the WRC2 category is quite competitive. So that'll be one to look at, a deep field in that class. And the Rally 3 is a spec class. They have Rally 2, but they're not classified. That's interesting. And a couple of Rally 2 and Rally 3 cars. Then you have, okay, so they'll have 68 cars. Interesting. So we'll see what happens with that. If Calle Rovanperä can continue his momentum going into at Rally Finland at a home game there. The Indy Next series will be running at Nashville this weekend on Sunday morning, actually. Go in there. I don't know if they don't have the spotter guy. They don't have the entry list as of yet, but the moving up is Matt Brabham will be racing for Cape Motorsports this weekend. Victor Franzoni will be racing for Juncos Hollander. We'll step up to Indy Next. Both drivers, yeah. So, and then Able Motorsports will have Yuvan Sundramurti and Francesco Pizzi will both be racing to finish the season for Able Motorsports. So 20-year-old Indian American. So I have somebody to root for. Look at that. In Indy Next. It's not like I didn't have people to root for, but I have somebody else to root for. I have a brown guy just so I can hear Lee Diffie try to pronounce that name on a telecast. I'm just hoping he makes it just for that sake alone. Okay, let me go here. Okay. And that's it. Training camp update. We'll get back to it next week. It's early. They'll have the Hall of Fame game, Aaron and all that. Don't have to worry about it. We'll get back to that next week with Josh. Nothing serious has happened with either of our teams. Tim Patrick got hurt. I haven't seen anybody else that's really gotten hurt as of yet. I didn't look at the trade deadline in baseball. I don't think anything of great significance happened. IndyCar will be at Nashville for the third time, and I don't know if they've altered the course from last year at all. I would hope so, because it's just a carnage-filled race that they've had in the 2 years that they've been there. So far, Dixon, the winner last year at Nashville, it would be very timely for him to get a win if he could get one this year. He has 2 top tens there. Palou, Rosenquist, Newgarden, all have had 2 top tens in 2 races there. And for me, that it basically, and Rosenquist Ericsson won the first race there after taking off in the air over the back of Sebastian Bourdais' car. So for me, I'm going to pick Scott Dixon. It's chalk. Why wouldn't I? My wild card is not really a wild card because he's too far up in points, but so I'll preface this. So this one is the one that I think has a really great chance to win if he can get out of his own way, and that's Colton Herta, who's been supremely fast at this racetrack 2 years in a row and has nothing to show for it. And then in the looking at the IndyCar standings itself, the actual standings, drivers, championship of 27 drivers. The person I would pick as a wild card amongst this group, you're going to have Linus Lundqvist making his IndyCar debut this weekend. So that's asking a lot. I'm going to pick Callum Ilott. He's right on the edge there. I think it's a good opportunity for him to go and get a good result. He got screwed at Detroit out of a result. I think this will be a good opportunity for him this weekend. So I'll go and I'll write it down here and update it later. So Dixon, I got Dixon, Herta, and then Ilott. Okay. So after that long period of inactivity for Joe, you're welcome back.
Thank you. My dad, I had to take a call, been having some car issues, and he found some stuff that I needed. Unfortunately, it looks like tomorrow's going to be a really long day.
Well, it sounds like for everything you've been going through today, then it's been a long few days, so I apologize for making that a little longer on my end, but
fun though. I like being here.
so we'll go and start previewing the Michigan weekend. They'll have ARCA, which basically nobody cares about, and they'll run the Cabo Wabo 250, which means we're going to get to see Sammy Hagar in whatever condition he's in, and they'll qualify on Friday, practice and qualify on Friday, and then they'll race on Saturday afternoon. There'll be 40 cars for 38 spots. Let's see, Carson Hocevar in the Spire 77, Dawson Cram back in the 74 for Mike Harmon's team, Weatherman in the 91, the 66 back in trying to make the show. I'm not sure if that's going to continue to be the case. CJ McLaughlin, who was parked a few weeks ago, attempting to make the race with the Emerling Gaze 53. Mason Massey in the 44 for Alpha Prime. Trying to see through here. Graf in the 38 this week. Emerling back in his own 35. Connor Mozak in the 24 after running for Gibbs last week. Keebler Gibbs in the 19. AJ Allmendinger in the 10. Mason Maggio in the 08. Stephen Parsons back in the 07. Both of those for SS Greenlight. Brennan Poole, he's already nobody. They don't have anybody listed in the 4 right now for JD Motorsports. Blaine Perkins running Auto Park It this week for Our Motorsports, a sponsor for Lawless Allen. So I'll let you go first, Joe. And what are your thoughts? Who do you look for as a winner and a wild card this weekend at Michigan in the Xfinity Series?
Yeah, well, Michigan has been very much track about pretty much 2 things, speed and strategy. Seem to find a similar level of grip. It's a little harder to pass at Michigan just because you really only find the grip in, 2 or 3 lanes. But you can do it. It's not like Richmond. You can definitely pass here, especially in an Xfinity car. To me, there's one team that really, I think for the past maybe year and a half, really comes to the forefront of my brain when I just think speed and big track. That's Austin Hill. I'm going to pick Austin Hill as my favorite to win this race. This is just that type of racetrack that I feel like he does well at. Does well at Las Vegas, a smoother, more high speed. You're not really running on the bottom the entire time type of track. To me, this rings true. Obviously, some differences in size, shape, speed that you run at Michigan, but Austin Hill seems to fit that bill as far as what I look for. Thinking about a dark horse, I like what you said about IndyCar, that you picked someone you thought was maybe too high up in the points, rather, to be your dark horse, so to speak. And I feel very much similar about the same person, probably a little too high up in points to call him a dark horse. But given the year he's had, given his results, some rather poor luck, I think maybe, if anything, more than a dark horse, it's more an opportunity to get their campaign for the championship back on track. Josh Berry has done very well at Michigan, is another guy I think of doing very well at these tracks like Las Vegas, very similar to Austin Hill. 2 years ago was really close to winning the Michigan race when he was in that number 1 car filling in for Michael Annett when Annett was out on injury, and has done well since. So he's probably again, like we said, a little too high up to be a dark horse, but we'll make him my dark horse. I'll go out on that.
Okay. Yeah. And I'll go, and I have no problem with that. It'd be good to see. Personally, he does need a win just to kind of get that momentum moving there for this season, knowing that, of course, he's going to be moving forward to the Cup Series next year. For me, I mean, you brought up Austin Hill. He's going to be running the Cup Series as well this weekend in the 62 for Beard Motorsports. Never knew Beard Motorsports was from Michigan until, I guess, today or yesterday or whatever. So credit to them finally running at Michigan. For me, I mean, if it isn't Austin Hill, generally speaking, the easiest one to go with is John Hunter Nemechek, because they've been the 2 dominant figures so far in 2023. 8 wins amongst those two guys in 20 starts. And when you look at other regular drivers that are in this series, they only have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the rest of the regular field has 7 wins. So they've been dominant. I'm going to go with John Hunter for me, and then because why wouldn't I? It makes a lot of sense. Somebody who right now too high in points, so that's because I'm counting people who've run 19. I think Kyle Sieg counts as well in 18 races, so that means it would be Perkins actually. 24, 25, so it'll be 13. Somebody that I would say is a wild card for this weekend, I'll say, is Ryan Sieg. He definitely needs a win. Fuel mileage comes into play at Michigan. It's an opportunity race. There's not going to be that many pit stops if they don't lose a lap. I think that's an opportunity for them to possibly backdoor their way into the playoffs. You look at Daytona being one of those as well. That was one of those are two of the last. That's probably the only other opportunity race they have, because the 2 road course races coming up, there's going to be Cup guys there. So I'll pick Ryan Sieg for that. I do agree with Joe on the Josh Berry call. Custer has not done horrible at Michigan over the years. Other than that, I'm trying to think who else has kind of a record. I mean, Creed, we keep on talking about when is he going to get his first win. At some point, he's going to have to get a win. But right now, he's on the bump spot for the playoffs. So we'll see how that goes. Only 22 points ahead of Parker Kligerman. We'll go to the Cup Series Firekeepers Casino 400 at Michigan. No issue for DNQs because there's 37 for 40. I just looked at that again just before I move forward. What were your thoughts, Joe, on the announcement that CW is going to be the official home of the Xfinity series for 6 years? I think the 6-year deal starting in 25. Exclusive. They're going to show the vast majority of qualifying and practices as well. Albeit they're not that long anyway, but these days. But hopefully that means some new blood. NASCAR media group is going to handle a lot of the back end of it. So that'll be one piece. I wonder who they're going to hire in terms of talent, but new opportunity for NASCAR and for the Xfinity Series to have their own identity for the first time probably in 23 years.
Yeah, I will say I kind of like it being on one channel. I like the fact, I mean, you have Fox Sports 1 and Fox carrying out all of the trucks. I feel like, Cup is a little too high premium market to have one carrier the entire year. But Xfinity, I like the call for Xfinity. I think it's going to make it a lot easier for fans to remember, all right, Saturday is for CW, and go ahead, tune in and, watch. And I do hope that they pull either existing or new talent. It'll be nice and refreshing to see something that's new for all you fans who tear apart NBC and Fox, and mostly Fox. Just give CW a little bit of a break. It's going to be a rough start. It always is a rough start when you're jumping into something a little newer, especially with a new channel that's probably just figuring everything out. So, cut them a little bit slack the first half of the season, wait for the second half before you really rip in anybody over at the CW. But I'm excited. I'm hoping it's going to be good. Xfinity won't change much, of course, but it's exciting to hear that large of a commitment for the Xfinity series, especially when it's a standalone deal. The CW, as far as we know, is not contending for any bids for the Cup Series. So it's kind of nice to see it in some sense stand alone and stand out. Very similar to, I feel like with the trucks, to turn to Fox 1, it helps it stand out a little once NBC takes over. So it'll be interesting. It might be a little more complicated for select viewers to follow, but I think at the same time, it's a good way to help continue to build up that series and that brand that is the Xfinity series.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's better for the series in general that they have their own identity, for one. I also look at it in the sense that it is an opportunity to probably bring up some people that haven't been in the lead broadcasting, like a lead play-by-play person, couple of analysts that haven't really gotten a shot, or maybe somebody who hasn't been around in a little bit. There's plenty of people that I think are pining for the likes of Alan Bestwick to get a call again, including myself and Joe. But I don't know what he's thinking. He likes that 6-week deal with the SRX while he decides to call random college football, tennis, and whatever else he calls on ESPN. But I guess he's happy. So let's see. I don't know who they'd pick, as long as it's not Jamie Little or Vince Welsh or I don't know, whoever they calling regular ARCA races on MAV TV. I mean, call Krista I don't care. She was not horrible but call Krista back. She was good. Like there's people that are on the sidelines that definitely could work and do some stuff there. I mean, I think one person that we should probably look at, there's a lot of young women. You have what's it called? I was talking about Vince Welsh. Well, Dylan Welsh, I think, is somebody who I think is more of an IndyCar, sports car guy, but with his background, but he's also got a lot of NASCAR time as well. Him and his wife, Hannah Newhouse, I think those two would be a great pairing to move over. A blast from the past is Dr. Jerry Punch. Well, his daughter Jessie does a show on MAV TV. She would be an awesome ad and probably be a great pre and post-race host.
Not to mention, get some driver talent in there. As far as I'm aware, Kurt Busch is not with any broadcasters next year or this year, I believe. So I always thought he was really great in the booth for the Truck Series, and I would love to see him in the booth. I would love to get his insight. I think that's one of the strengths NBC has with having Jeff Burton and Dale Jr., and then having the crew chief combo, right, of Dale Jr. and Steve Letarte that work together. That's one of the things that works so well for them. So I'd like to see some driver talent. If we don't get crew chief talent, maybe they can pull from an existing pool there and get consultation from Steve Letarte. I know he does some of that, but it'd be good to see, I think, some driver talent too.
Yeah, I think, if Kurt is looking for a side gig, I think he would be a great lead guy. That would be a great name to go and put on the telecast, saying, well, we got Kurt as our lead analyst. He's a Cup Series champion. He's won Xfinity races, and he's got opinions and whatever. So they'd be able to market that. Could even have an opportunity once in a while to have Kyle come up then, if they were going to have the roving third. I think they probably want to have a solid regular lineup. I don't know who their lead play-by-play person will be, but I think Kurt would be a great pillar to have there because he kind of brings that balance. Kind of reminds me, he has a little bit of excitability, but he also is very, calculated. So it kind of brings a little bit of Benny and Ned there, which is what you want. And then having somebody who's kind of out there, could be as a driver, but there are crew chiefs that aren't working right now that would be options. You have what's his name, who used to be Joey Logano's crew chief and now works part-time as Jimmy's crew chief on the 84 what do you call Legacy, Todd Gordon. Yeah, he works for he works for what do you call MRN. That would be a good, I'm not sure if he's a TV guy per se, but he knows everything. He knows all that stuff. He's won. I always like Booty, but he's got a good gig right now with the 23. So Chad Knaus, but then he's too connected. He was good in the booth, but he's too connected. It would be too much of a bias deal, but I mean, but then there's always somebody from Hendrick involved. So why wouldn't they go and get him or go and get, Greg Ives or get somebody who's used to work for Hendrick? Like there always is. But we'll see. I think that'll be an interesting, because now there's still over a year and a half before they have to actually make their debut. So they have plenty of time to look at who they're going to bring on talent-wise. Cup Series, as I mentioned, Austin Hill will be running in the 62. Bilicki will be back in the 78. Custer in the 51 for Rick Ware. Yaley in his usual 15. Let's go through sponsors. Jockey will be on the 1 for Chastain. They don't have somebody listed for Cindric as of now. Dow Mobility Science for Bald Spot. Busch Light Peach again for Harvick. He finished in the top 5 at Pocono with that scheme. Nexalit, whatever the hell that is, for Brad. Garner Trucking for LaJoy. Quick Trip and Quick Star for Kyle Busch. Narpa for Elliott this week. Mavis again for Denny Hamlin. Blaney has nobody listed. Mahindra for Briscoe. Farm Smart for Allmendinger. Castrol Edge for Buescher. Auto Owners. Martin Truex. Ream again for Chris Bell. Harrison Burton Ford 20-year senior master tax. Interesting. DoorDash back on the 23 for Bubba. Liberty and Lee Filter on the 31, Loves and MTS for Michael McDowell, Chicago Pneumatic Compressors for Todd Gilliland, United Rentals for Ryan Preece, nobody listed, so we know it'll be the usual on the 42 and the 43, Rocket League for the 45 and Tyler Reddick, Minute Rice for Ricky Stenhouse, Ally and the Detroit Pistons, for Alex Bowman. Keebler Gibbs will actually have Monster on the car this week. Austin Hill Bennett Transportation. Ferris Commercial Mowers for Ty Dillon. Ziegler Auto Group, Josh Bilicki. Worldwide Express for Daniel Suarez. All right, Joe. So, Michigan, one time they raced here. Now they used to race twice. Last year, Kevin Harvick won his second of back-to-back races there at Michigan. His recent record there is pretty insane. Is this the weekend that he goes and ends the winless streak and finally gets back into victory lane, or are we looking at Chevy resurgence and Toyota continuing their trend of being up front?
I think about a lot of the names about who's good at Michigan, and there's a handful, and it seems like over time, you get a few new ones in there, a few drop out. I'm having a little bit of a hard time, quite honestly, because last year, despite Ford winning, Ross Chastain really, was looking good for a long part of the race there. And I believe it was a late race incident between he and Christopher Bell, who, if I remember correctly, were going to cycle back out to the front. I believe they were 3rd and 4th at the time, ended up wrecking each other. Just part of collateral damage from Ross Chastain. I don't know, because last year I do genuinely feel like things could have gone differently. As far as Kevin Harvick, I mean, it's silly to not even consider him when going to Michigan. If you're sleeping on Harvick, you probably got another thing coming. Although he's not running a red car, it's orange, so don't know if the extra speed is going to fall out because of the color change. I think a lot about Harvick going and winning Michigan. I think he's going to be a contender for sure. Chastain, earlier in the year, I would have said they've got a lot of speed, but ever since that win at Nashville, just doesn't really seem like they can do anything. I'm actually looking more towards the Toyotas. If there is one Chevrolet I'm looking at, it's Kyle Busch, but the Toyotas are really where I'm looking. The past few weeks, they've really turned things up. Captured a few wins, and they're really the group that I'm looking at. I'll use this to transition into my picks. I'm actually going to go a little bit of a different way. I'm going to pick 2 drivers who, one of them I definitely wouldn't call a sleeper. I wouldn't necessarily call him a favorite, but he's sort of the person I'm looking to lead the charge against Ford from one camp. My other pick's going to be from the other camp, and I'll explain. My favorite, so to speak, is going to be Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch, for a number of years, was always very strong here. And Toyota was, from Toyota, one of the leading drivers here, other than Denny Hamlin. I think what Kyle Busch has probably been doing so well this season, probably part of the reason why that RCR team has been performing so well, is he has that wealth of knowledge. What has Toyota been doing all of these years? And remember, Richard Childress Racing is not particularly bad here. Austin Dillon had a few good runs here over the years. In particular, I think to a few years ago, I believe it was 2021, where he actually won a stage and then immediately wrecked with Brad Keselowski not 2 seconds later after crossing the start-finish line. So I'm going with that camp as my favorite. Kyle Busch, Richard Childress Racing. I'm also going to bet against Ford. Not that I have it out against Ford, but sorry, Ford. I'm going to go with someone from the different camp for my dark horse. He's coming off a lot of momentum at Richmond. I talked about him earlier in the show. He has also run really good here at Michigan, and last year ran pretty well for quite some time in the Michigan race. I want to go with Bubba Wallace for my dark horse pick. He's run well at Michigan before, and coming off the momentum that he's coming, I feel like this is a Bubba thing. He builds up that momentum for a little bit at a time, and then all of a sudden, boom, has a stretch of really good races. And I feel like last week could have been the start of that, where we now are really, I don't want to discredit him because he ran fairly well at New Hampshire and Pocono as well. But last week, I think, was the first week where it was the full race for the most part. I know he had that mistake at the end, but we'll call it the full race, right? Now, can he come back to a track where he did well at before and bring that momentum into this race and finish it up? I sort of do think of him too, about these bigger and faster tracks. Daytona, Talladega, Atlanta obviously come to mind, but he's had a few good runs here at Michigan, as well as tracks similar but different, Kansas, Las Vegas. So I'm going to go with Bubba for my dark horse.
Yeah, he's a winner in the Truck Series, famously got pranked by his best friend after that on the glass case of emotion, which was one of the funniest things ever. But he's really good at Michigan. I think his bread and butter, you'd say, either are short tracks or Martinsville, that short track at Martinsville, or these cookie cutter type races. And he's also a very streaky guy. When he gets on streaks, he's good for winning a lot and doing really well, much to the chagrin of segments of the fan base. And this is one of his best racetracks. Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of those picks. I mean, Kyle Busch, fourth overall in points. While the consistency hasn't been there per se, he does have the 3 wins. He's only 5 points behind Christopher Bell for fourth. So he's running above and beyond even what Reddick was doing with a similar kind of number of wins last year. And, absolutely taking Dillon to the woodshed in terms of the points as well. For me, I mean, yeah, Bubba, that's a great pick there. I'm going to go the other way. It might be a little bit of fandom, might be a little bit of soda homer, because he used to be my favorite driver. I think the momentum is in the favor of Brad Keselowski to finally win at Michigan International Speedway. He's now had 2 times where he's had a chance to win, and both of those times his teammate has won. I think Brad hasn't won in over 2 years now. It's because it's Talladega in April of 21. So it's been over 2 years for him. So, I mean, I think it's time for him to finally win there. Ford wants this victory. I know that they've had a brutal year. It'll be a big deal for him to get that victory, lock himself into the playoff, and solidify RFK solidly in, so that they don't have to worry about their circumstance, their situation, playoff-wise, going to 2 road courses and Daytona. And in terms of a wild card pick, I mean, I was going with the Clyde for a few races, and that definitely didn't work out. Not trying Bowman because he's been god awful. It makes, there's really two people I think that it would make the most sense to do it with. I'm going to do it while it makes me nauseous. I'm going to go with Keebler Gibbs. He's shown progression here in the last few races, minus, of course, he ran into somebody last week or last couple weeks. I think he ran into somebody. I think he ran into somebody at New Hampshire. Or if you didn't run into somebody in New Hampshire, you ran into somebody last week. Whatever it was, to be Keebler Gibbs, to show what he is. But in terms of his projection and potential, the slow rise, he still has a chance to make this on points. He can go out there at Michigan and give himself a lot of help with a solid day with stage points and a top 10 or 15 finish out of the deal. Keebler would be my wild card there, and that would be a huge effect for him. I think that points battle is going to be quite intriguing because the way the math has been working, it's going to be hard to see 16 different winners at this point. I mean, every single race now somebody would have to win for there to be 16 winners, so different winners. So I have a hard time believing that'll happen. I do think that Harvick has shown speed at times. Keselowski's had speed at times, even Bubba to a point. So, yeah, theoretically, one of those guys could win this weekend. And I think one of those guys theoretically could win at Daytona. But then when you go to the road course, yeah, the Roush cars have been good. But you're looking at like the ringers going at Indy, and Watkins Glen's a very fast track. So that's been a Hendrick benefit for a while, or Gibbs place. So see what happens with that. All right. So that'll be it for this week. Joe, thanks for coming on. No, you had to go through a lot of technical difficulties and having to move the camera around since family was moving around there, having to get into the drawers. So, first of all, thanks for coming on. Great that we could have you back on the show, and hopefully we can do more as we get towards the Cup playoffs. But where can we find you on the socials and other things that you're working on right now?
Yeah, so I mentioned off the air, I have a few things that are in development, we'll call them. We haven't gotten very far along. Life's taken a turn for me. Not a bad one, I won't say a bad one, but things are very different than they were the last time I was on the show. I am still tweeting. It's a little more scarce than it has been. You can still follow me at Passero Jr. on Twitter. That's PASSEROJR, or if that's now not Twitter, if it's X, I don't know what it's called anymore. But I'm still there, wherever it is, I'm still there. And you can find me there. I still do my stage points. I still do all the updates. This next few weeks in particular is going to be a lot of points updates with drivers not having an opportunity to point their way in anymore. Drivers now on the cusp. If there's no new winner, or if there's new winner, the next few weeks are always ridiculous, and I love them. I thrive in them. So be sure to follow me, and I'll be having some updates there. Phil, thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it. Josh out there, hello, if you're watching this or editing this. And it's great. It's always great to be on the show, and I want to thank you for inviting me out tonight. It's been a rough time lately, especially, but this is a nice way to just talk racing, relax for a little while, and probably could use a few more of these.
The door is always open for you, brother. If you want to come on, we always have good chats and good conversations. It actually makes me think a little more, even on the NASCAR side, when, for me, as my fandom has kind of waned at times. So it makes me think a little bit, brings me back in a lot of ways, but it also keeps me engaged. So it's always good. And I always appreciate the stage point updates and stuff on your feed. So definitely follow Joe on whatever they're supposed to call one of Elon Musk's useless platforms that he's got now. In terms of me on this platform on X or whatever, I'm PG Matthew 28. We have at Gripstrip Pod on this platform as well. We'll also, we're on YouTube at Gripstrip Podcast. Josh handles the video feed. When we have video feeds, we also post the audio of the show. The audio goes on there as well on my YouTube page. And so if you just want to listen to the audio, you can hear it there. You can also get it on philipgmatthew.com, the blog site. Hoping over the next couple of months, I might be able to start, writing something again. It would be nice. Been off of that for a while, so maybe we can get some written content going there. The Grid Talk, go on there. Grid Talk podcast. I'm a part of the George Housen fan club. Might be able to get some of the members there to come on, kind of talk about F1 here in the next couple of weeks with their summer break on, get into more of the details that don't involve fish lips. But you could see me on there as well. We'll be back for episode 181 of the Gripstrip podcast, and next week talking about all the racing at Michigan, Nashville for IndyCar, so Cup Xfinity Michigan. Roundup won't be anywhere near as busy, thankfully for me. And we'll definitely get into more NFL talk next week. Won't be as much going on racing wise. We'll preview the whole weekend at Indianapolis. You'll have the Gallagher Grand Prix at the IMS Road Course, then Cup and Xfinity, which will have the likes of Shane Van Gisbergen, Brody Kostecki, and Kamui Kobayashi, amongst others, racing in the Indianapolis Verizon 200. So we'll get in all that previews and the whole bit. So for Joe, I'm Phil. Thanks for tuning in to Gripstrip Podcast, and we'll talk to you next time.